Greetings to all you folks in Guam. My name is Eric Lombardi. I'm the Executive Director of EcoCycle here in Boulder, Colorado. Unfortunately, I can't be with you in paradise today. I've been to Guam. I'm coming to you from Boulder, Colorado, thanks to technology. And I'm part of the team that helped structure your day today. And we thought we would kick off with a big picture overview of zero waste community planning. And I was brought in to help with that task since I've been doing that for nearly 20 years now. So this next 30 or 35 minutes is going to cover 6 primary points that we'll move into. But before we do so, we have a short video that EcoCycle produced 10 years ago to help communities understand the bigger context of zero waste and why the world is taking out the trash very differently than we used to. So enjoy the film.
Welcome to planet Earth, where 6 billion humans and untold numbers of other species are all dependent upon a limited supply of natural resources for their survival. Here in the United States of America, the consumption capital of the world, we consume more than our fair share. 5% of the human population consumes 35% of the planet's resources. Every year, we buy 13 billion liters of bottled water,
25 million TVs, 45 million new computer systems, 2.5 million tubes of toothpaste, 2 billion razor blades and disposable razors, 2.5 billion packages of cereal, 18 billion disposable diapers, 130 million cell phones.
We live in a world of declining resources at a time that population growth is expanding rapidly. Consumption of those resources is expanding rapidly. And industry and the systems that we've created in our society are acting as if the resources are limitless.
More and more, products are designed for convenience and disposability, regardless of their cost to the environment or to our health. For example, polystyrene, otherwise known as styrofoam, is quick, convenient, and toxic. Known toxins include styrene, benzene, and HCFCs, which pollute the earth, contribute to ozone depletion, and pose a danger to human health. This product will never decompose, ever. This product is made from old growth. In the manufacturing process, dioxin is produced, one of the most toxic substances known to humans. Formaldehyde, chloroform, and other toxins are also used, which contribute to skin disease, developmental defects, and cancer. These days, everything is designed for convenience and disposability. A cell phone's average life expectancy is a mere 18 months. This product contains lead, a neurotoxin known to cause brain and kidney damage. It also contains brominated flame retardants linked to intellectual impairment in children and altered sexual development. It is likely to leak contaminants when disposed of in a landfill or burned in an incinerator. Even as you're doing your best, recycle as much as you can and create as little garbage as possible. The waste you see at your home is only the very tip of the iceberg. For every garbage can you put out at the curb, the equivalent of 71 garbage cans worth of waste is created in the industrial processes used to convert raw materials into finished products. With dwindling resources and increasing populations, you might ask, why would we have a system like this? The answer is because you pay for it. When you pay for a product, you don't just pay for it at the checkout counter. You also pay with your U.S. tax dollars to subsidize resource extraction, which has devastating environmental and health impacts. Then you pay again in tax dollars to clean up the toxic pollutants created during the manufacturing process. Dig deep again, because now you have to pay more tax dollars for landfills and incinerators and for the resulting pollution these create. And you're not quite finished, because with all those toxins in the air, water, and ground, you're likely to have medical bills down the road.
I know that a lot of people think that trash is inevitable. It's one of those necessary evils of life, but that's not true. Waste is actually the product of bad design, and bad design can be changed.
Welcome to planet Earth, where resources are essential for our survival. So the systems we've created are designed to protect the planet.
Zero waste is a philosophy that is larger than recycling. Producer responsibility is the real revolution of the 21st century. It's the other half of the story. when we start making products with the environment in mind, then we can start recovering them for reuse. And then we have the cycle, and that whole cycle represents zero waste.
First, to make a product, you have to design for the environment, not for the dump, using recycled resources whenever possible, few or no toxins, and each product must be designed to be reused, recycled, or composted at the end of its useful life. All these benefits come without the sacrifice of convenience. It's simply a matter of sustainable systems and design.
Imagine if the product were brought back to the manufacturer, and all of a sudden the industry found themselves being responsible for the end-of-life management of the things they created.
With zero waste, manufacturers are responsible for the end-of-life phases of their products. They take them back for refurbishing and demanufacturing to make new products. So there won't be 71 times more waste created by industry because your tax dollars won't subsidize polluting practices. Instead, they'll support sustainable systems, like resource recovery parks built to replace landfills and incinerators. You'll have more materials accepted at the curb for recycling, and you'll have virtually nothing to throw away. A zero waste system isn't an idealistic dream, it's a reality. There are examples of zero waste all over the world. Some nations have formally adopted zero waste goals, others have passed legislation that holds manufacturers responsible for their products. Bans and taxes on products from plastic bags to mercury-containing electronics have been implemented. In the Global South, zero waste has become a vital new economic system and jobs creation program. 28 countries around the world have adopted take-back laws that hold manufacturers accountable for their products. The United States is noticeably absent on the list. In fact, there is very little happening on the national level in the U.S. However, some U.S. communities are taking action. San Francisco is leading the way to zero waste with their new Fantastic 3 program and an official goal of zero waste by 2020.
The concept of zero waste is taking off around the planet faster than it is in the United States. One of the things that EcoCycle is doing through a new project called EcoCycle International is trying to translate the global experiences around this issue for the American culture. How do we create it in America so it makes sense to the way we live?
Learn more about zero waste and take action to bring zero waste to the U.S. by visiting EcoCycle's website at ecocycle.org.
So I hope you enjoyed the film. Now what we need to talk about is what is zero waste in the context of your situation. Let's bring it back to Earth. So you'll be relieved to know that zero waste does not mean that you're never going to use a landfill again. I helped form an organization called the Zero Waste International Alliance over 10 years ago with about 12 countries represented. And we all talked about this situation of getting to absolute zero. And that's actually maybe impossible. We don't know. That's not the point. The point of zero waste is it's a journey. It's not a destination. It is a policy where as you make your decisions, you're getting closer or further from the zero waste goal with every decision you make. So the key idea here is we're always going to have what we call discards. When you're done with something, it's going to be put into a bin and it's going to go somewhere. Traditionally, that's been what we call waste. It goes into a trash bin. It goes to a landfill. Zero waste community planning adds to that story. So there's three words here, three key words in the new story. What is waste, what is zero waste, and what is residue? And I'll walk through each of those briefly. You know what waste is. We all know what waste is. It's the mixed up garbage in your trash can, okay? And the key idea behind that is nobody wants that stuff. And that's why it gets buried and that's why it gets burned, because there's no market value to mixed waste like that. So the second question is, what is zero waste? Zero waste is sorted resources out of that mixed waste. And a lot of people want that stuff. In fact, there's real market value in the sorted mixed trash can. I personally have marketed nearly 1 million tons in my career of resources, and I've been paid for every penny by industry, not because they're green, but because it's an economic resource and feedstock for the whole economic system. And this truism, which has been true for 30 years, is getting truer every year. The markets for recyclables are getting stronger as we go forward. The value of this stuff has increased 300% in the last 15 or 20 years, and it's just going to keep going. So waste is mixed trash. Zero waste is sorted discards. And the third word, residues, that's the stuff that even if you sorted it out, there's no market. What does that include? Baby diapers, painted wood, treated wood. You have quite a bit of that in the islands. Radioactive material. These are things that even if you sort them out, there's no market value to them. So that's why in the zero waste international community, we are saying that a zero waste community will be at a 90% recycling rate with probably 10% residue, no matter how good you are at this point. So that was the first of 6 points. What is waste? What is zero waste? My second point is that if you're going to expand the story of what you're doing with waste, adding a zero waste system to the island, now you're going to have 2 systems for handling your discards. One of them is going to be a traditional waste system. The other is going to be a zero waste system. Each of those is going to have a different set of costs. And now we know from experience around the world, when you're handling waste, you cannot just count the financial cost of our options. We now know that there are serious environmental impacts from how we handle our waste, and there are significant social impacts on how we handle our waste. So I want to take just a minute so that we can discuss the 3 different ways of measuring cost for your 2 different systems on the island for handling your discards. Under your waste system, your mixed waste system, you are going to have a landfill. I understand you have a new landfill GBB's been working on. I greatly respect their work. And so you now have, from an economic perspective, something that is a pure cost because the market's not going to pay you for it. So you're paying now to put it in the ground. Just like everyone else who has a landfill. That's the way it goes. The environmental costs of landfills, EPA is on record as saying there's never been a landfill built that won't leak, and even GBB knows that. So we know that eventually material in a landfill will find groundwater. We also know that as things are degrading in the landfill, they create air emissions. So from an environmental perspective, we have got a cost, and it is air emissions, air pollution, and water pollution. And then from a social perspective, we know we have 2 things happening with the social side. One is a NIMBY factor. Nobody wants a landfill in their backyard for various reasons. So there's an environmental justice issue of who gets the landfill in their backyard. But more interesting is there's jobs, and that's a positive. We all need jobs. We need jobs we can't export. And a landfill will provide, rule of thumb is 1 job for every 10,000 tons that goes in the landfill. So that's your waste system. Now let's talk about your zero waste system. Zero waste system on the financial cost side is actually going to produce revenue and value. In fact, some materials are so valuable that they are a profitable business activity in many metals. Paper, plastic, and glass are increasing as well. So now instead of 100% cost, we now have a much less cost and we have revenue. On the environmental and social side, on the environmental side, since we are preventing air emissions and preventing water emissions, we're getting significant environmental benefit when we recover and recycle and compost materials. It's hard to quantify exactly what that benefit is, but we know it exists. When you keep materials in the local economy, they will increase their value in many different ways. And finally, social side, we were talking about jobs. In the zero waste economy, it's been estimated that instead of 1 job for every 10,000 tons, we get 10 times as many jobs. 10 jobs for every 10,000 tons. And these are good jobs you can't export. So it's important for all of us to understand that your two discard management systems are going to have two sets of costs: financial, environmental, and social. So now moving on to the third point, we know what zero waste is. We know how to measure the cost of a zero waste system versus a traditional waste system. So now, what does a zero waste path forward look like for Guam? And you'll be relieved to know that it's nothing that you haven't already been exposed to. It's just a little bit bigger. It's the 3 R's: reduce, reuse, recycle. And now don't fall asleep because you've heard this before, because I am going to expand the concept of the 3 R's for you. But essentially that's still the same frame and still the same approach that everyone will take. So first you have reduce, reuse, recycle. Reduce means preventing waste before it even starts. And the way you can think about this is that you've got a bunch of material that is coming into your island. You're importing almost everything. And there is a waste stream or a discard stream that flows through Guam. Every stream has an upstream and a downstream. And so we're going to add a midstream to that analogy. So upstream, midstream, downstream. Upstream is reduce, midstream is reuse, downstream is recycle. Upstream, let's talk about that first. So how do you reduce waste before it happens? Well, there's many ways to do it, but probably the key way for you to begin your discussions today and focus on immediately is how you're spending public dollars. Environmental purchasing. This is a very key concept. We've seen great progress in how governments contract out for goods and services the last 10 years. There are a great many examples around the world. Think of the acronym EPP, Environmental Purchasing Policy. And what you're going to do is you're going to buy, in your RFPs, non-toxic services and goods that are recyclable, compostable, or reusable. It's that simple. There's plenty of good documentation around about guiding you forward on that. So that's your primary step in the upstream waste reduction world. Not too tough. The second thing is reuse and repair. That's midstream. What that says is once you have your products circulating on island and being of economic value to people, keep them there. Keep them moving. Create jobs through reuse and repair. The thrift store culture. This is the greenest thing you can do as an individual or a business, is buy things that are already made, buy used. And finally, downstream, recycle. That's the part we all know the best. Recycle, compost. So I think the path looks like something you've already seen. There's nothing dramatically new to this. But it's important that we expand the concept of upstream and midstream and not just focus on downstream recycling. Zero waste brings us full circle to waste reduction first before we get to recycling. So in summary, reduce, reuse, recycle is still the mantra, and just make sure that everyone starts buying recyclable, compostable, non-toxic goods and services. So point number 4, once you're on the path to zero waste planning, what are the keys to success? Well, there's three key actions and 1 key thought. So the 3 key actions are education, financial consequences, and regulation. I'll talk first about education. By education, what I mean is a culture shift. We're talking about shifting everyone, every person, every institution, every business, away from using the single trash can, which is the tool necessary for the waste system, and start using 3 trash cans. 1 for recycling, 1 for composting, 1 for residue. That's the key for a zero waste economy. And so it sounds easy, but that takes a significant culture shift. It also, of course, means an infrastructure shift. You can't have thousands of trash cans all around the island standing alone. Now you need to have recycling bins attached to that trash can so that it's just as easy to do the right thing as it is to do the wasting thing. So, culture shift, number one, education needs to be well funded, needs to be comprehensive. There's an old saying in the recycling industry, your first processing dollar goes into community education. Why is that? Because your community is your cheapest sorting labor. You want people to do it correctly. And so don't underinvest in your community outreach and education. In fact, culture shift may be the hardest part of what we're talking about all day today. It's easy to build facilities. It's easy to write policies. It is tough to get people to change their behavior. Don't underestimate it. Key action number two is financial consequences. That means reward the recyclers. Reward financially. It's a pocketbook issue. Reward the people that participate and come your way with the zero waste economy. That means that the people who don't come your way are going to pay for the pollution that they're contributing to. Because we've already discussed how the waste system versus the zero waste system has a higher cost in pollution. Polluter pays is a well-known and fair principle that the United States EPA and others, the whole world is running off of. So it's important that the financial consequences reward those businesses and individuals that are joining the culture shift and participating in the new zero waste economy. Third key action, regulation. Nobody likes to be told what to do. So the approach we recommend is called rates and dates. Basically what that means is a certain community, maybe it's a industry of a certain type on Guam, needs to start recycling 50% of their discards within 3 years, and then 70% within 5 years. That's the rates and the dates. And you send them the message that you know that they're in the best position to solve the problem. Industry always can create the most cost-effective approach. And they will if they feel like they have to. So the message to industry and others on the island is meet these rates voluntarily, figure it out yourself, or the community, through the government, is going to come in with requirements and regulations. So that's the rates and dates approach. It's fair. It gives industry and individuals the freedom to come up with their own solutions, to join in the, participate in the community goals, and move forward. Finally, there's a key thought in all of this. And I think it's important that everyone buy into this and understand this statement. Zero waste community planning is a social change issue first and a free market issue second. And that's turning it on its head, because the recycling history in the world has been, the market has been driving what gets recycled rather than community benefit, environmental and social benefit drives what gets recycled, and the economics follow. The reason this is important is because you already have an established waste management system on Guam, and it's going to be uncomfortable and sometimes difficult for them to change to support the new zero waste community program. But as long as they get on board and understand it's a social change issue first, a culture shift, and a new way of living on the island first, then the market economics will fall out afterwards. Business will still be done, profits will still be made, and as a matter of fact, the total waste management bill on Guam will be lower because you'll be capturing the value of the resources. Moving on now to point number 5, and that is how to get going. What's the first step? And EcoCycle has created what we call a 10-year bridge strategy to a zero waste community. It's essentially a generic 10-year plan. And we've been able to create this because so many communities now have gone down this path, and we've learned so much about how to get to 50% recycling rates, 70% recycling rates. We don't know how to get to 90% yet. We have seen communities hit 90, small in Italy and small ones in New Zealand. But mostly we have solid evidence of the programs and the policies and the infrastructure needed to get to 50% and 70%. So I would suggest to you that your first 10-year plan would probably, the appropriate target would probably be to get you to a 70% resource recovery rate. So breaking out our 10-year plan, it has 3 phases. Phase 1 is year 1 to 4. Phase 2 is year 5 to 8, and Phase 3 is year 9 to 10. And each has a specific key idea behind it. In your first phase, your first 4 years, absolutely essential that you build the infrastructure that you need. If you're not going to be putting things in the landfill, where's it going to go? Remember, you're always going to have discards to deal with. Well, it turns out that there are what we call the big 6 facilities that every zero waste community needs. I won't go through all of those facilities right now, but they include things like recycling, composting, construction and demolition, and landfill is one of them. So the first 4 years are primarily intended to build infrastructure. Must focus on that, because if you don't have the infrastructure, then what is the point of creating policies and programs to get things out of landfill if they have nowhere to go? That's phase 1. Phase 2, and from year 5 to 8, and this doesn't have to start in year 5, this can be started while phase 1 is going on. But the key idea behind phase 2 is building participation. Now it's time for the culture shift to actually have an impact, and for everybody on the island to actually start using 3 trash cans instead of 1, and start sorting the material, start implementing your EPP programs, and really get the culture geared in. Increase participation from year 5 to 8. And the key idea here, as I said, it's a pocketbook issue, is to create what's called pay-as-you-throw, unit-based pricing. Unit-based pricing is absolutely the most powerful lever a community has to create behavior change. And that just means the more waste you create, the more you pay. It's as simple as that. The less you create, the less you pay. It's reward the recycler system. So increase participation in phase 2. Phase 3, year 9 and 10, this is where you really link arms with the primary commercial sector in your community. Where I live, the commercial sector accounts for 60% of our local waste. I'm not sure what the numbers are in Guam, but 50-50 wouldn't surprise me. Actually, you have a very large military and tourist industry. It's probably more than 50-50 for you. So it's very important to link arms, public-private partnerships, where your large commercial and industrial sectors are fully on board with the zero waste community goal at this point. And the way you can support them is by making sure that the green local businesses are winning the profits. And what that means is public dollars are being spent to build the future on Guam that you want. Now, it may cost 10% more, but that's a short-term upfront cost compared to a long-term environmental damage and cleanup cost that you may have. It does, if you take a long-term view at this, you will see that paying a small premium now to create and support green businesses on island will pay off in the long run, and especially for your children's future. And finally, we have to ask the question, what about the residue? What should we do with it? Now, the consultants that I'm working with for your day-to-day asked me not to get into too much depth here because it is a big topic and it's often controversial. But you're not the only one that's wrestling with this question, what to do with residue. But no story of a zero waste community would be complete without talking about what do you do with that last 10%? Or if your goal is 70%, what do you do with the last 30%? Congratulations, you're at 70% recycling rates, you still have 30% mixed waste, so what are we going to do with it? And so I'll just briefly say that you basically have 2 choices. And these are 2 proven market-available choices. I'm not talking about pie in the sky, things that you'll read about in the trade press that everyone's promising that the next groovy black box is going to take care of it. I've been watching those for 30 years. I'm talking about your 2 proven options right now in the year 2012. And they're both landfill and landfill, but I'll call it landfill plus. So for your first choice, and you have a new landfill, is to put a front end on that landfill like Europe's doing and process the material, simply sort it to get out the remaining recyclables. But more importantly than that, then create very inexpensive windrows so that you can turn the material and surface compost it for 30 days, thus stabilizing 90% of the biodegradable waste in the pile. Why is that important? because we know what's happening in landfills with biodegradable material. They're cooking it up to 180 degrees, creating leachate and air emissions. This will enable you to create a biologically inert material before you bury it. The whole nation of Germany is doing this now. It's not expensive and it's effective. So that's option number one. Option number two is landfill, but instead of that front end, your front end is going to be what's called a mass burn incinerator. And there's plenty of mass burn incinerators around the country where people are actually making electricity by burning the waste and reducing its volume down to about 10 or 15%. That's why you still need a landfill. You still end up having material on your hands to landfill, but you're processing it by burning it and making electricity first. May or may not be appropriate for you, but I am going to say there are two problems in my mind with that approach, and that is, number one, the expense. Mass burn incinerators are extremely expensive and getting more so because of air quality cleanup emissions equipment. And the second challenge for those systems are that if you're going to spend a lot of money building it, then you're going to need to have a guaranteed source of fuel, trash, to pay the bank back. So let's say you design your system to burn 30% of the island's waste. That's going to be an impediment to you in continuing your zero waste path and getting to 20% and 10% residue. So once you've built that, you're going to freeze yourself in place for 20, 30 years, always burning 30% of the island's waste. So those are your options, landfill or landfill. So in summary, the question is, can you do this? And the answer is certainly you can do this. Guam can get started on the zero waste path immediately and start making decisions that creates less waste immediately. And as I've told you, it's a process. It's a journey, not a destination. You've got years and years to work on this, to build your infrastructure, create your policies, and implement your programs. It's a very hopeful activity for the island, for your families, for your businesses. So I want to thank you very much for your time and attention today. Good luck with the brainstorm session. I hope someday to get back out to your wonderful home and work with you on this issue. And I'll close by saying, get started, get sorting.